A lot of sports news happened over the weekend. Today we're talking NFL draft as we are 4 days out from the event. Let's hop into it. Obviously, the big news over the weekend was the fact that Dexter Lawrence was traded from the Cincinnati Bengals to Cincinnati from New York. New York gets the 10th overall pick, and this shakes up the draft. It does, because now New York has 2 top 10 picks, and it's scary hours. A little bit, right? But I want to talk about how New York getting this pick shapes up the draft, how it can potentially really shake up teams trading up, because it feels like that's the biggest need ever now as you look at teams like the Chiefs, Cowboys, right? Do they trade up to get one of those premier defensive players? Because now I feel like they are in a sticky situation. But let's look at Mel Kiper's mock draft here just to give us an outline on what can happen, right? Fernando, that's happening, right? We're not going to spend too much time on that. New York and Arizona hold a little bit of the essence of how the top 10 can really fall and which teams trade up. There's been some rumors that Arvel Reese could potentially drop. I don't see it, right? I think he probably goes to New York at 2, but if he drops, there will be teams calling Tennessee and New York to trade up and get this guy, because he is maybe a cornerstone to a defense. That's how good this guy can be. Obviously, it feels like there's a little bit lower floor than David Bailey, but a much higher ceiling. And so after Arizona goes, let's say Arizona and New York go defensive players, regardless if it goes Reese or Bailey first, right? Then it's Tennessee. A lot of people are loving Jeremiah Love, no pun intended, to Tennessee. And again, this is a pick in which, if I'm Tennessee, you're ideally probably trying to trade down. This could be a big area for teams to trade up, especially when you have guys like Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles still on the clock, or still available. But for Tennessee, again, if they go defense, then it's going to, that defensive player well is going to run dry. There's not going to be really any of the premier playmakers left at 10. I would be shocked, especially if they go defense. Now, if they go offense, there's life. New York is going defense with the 5th pick. I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm not seeing them going any other position than defense at the 5th pick in terms of expert mock drafts and whatnot. So I would be shocked if, one, they trade the pick, right? Now, again, if New York, and let's say you make a deal with the Cowboys, right? Why the Cowboys? They have 2 first-round picks, and you potentially walk away from this first round, regardless of who you take, with 3 first-round picks, 3 first-round talents. I don't remember the last time we've ever seen that in a single draft. I don't remember anything like that. That would be insane. And if you're New York, you definitely have a couple of pieces that you need, right? Maybe you get help at offensive line and wide receiver for Jackson Dart, but then you also need help on the defensive side of the ball. So if you're in New York and you're like, hey, we can potentially get 2 picks in the first round, all we have to do is all we have to give up is a second-round pick to Dallas, right? Now, again, I don't know if they trade in the division, but there's potential trades there that could happen. If you're in New York, you're like, it's definitely enticing at least. But I definitely think they keep the pick and go defense. Then, for Mel Kiper's mock draft, he has the Cowboys trading up. As a Cowboys guy, I was teetering back and forth whether or not I liked this idea or I hated the idea. And my overall thoughts now, as we're 4 days out, assuming no massive trades go down, and Sonny Styles would be there at 6, right? We're sitting there. Cleveland is now on the clock, and Sonny Styles is still available. And next thing you know, the Cowboys give up 12 and 20, and they get back 6 and 39. Especially if they get back to 39, I'd be like, yes, this is a great trade. If they don't get 39, which I think could be a situation, right? A lot of people are like, no, they're not. That's a bad trade. I wouldn't hate it as much as others, because Sonny Styles is a guy, an off-ball linebacker that can really help this defense. And then their linebacker core doesn't look too shabby, right? If Overshown can stay healthy for a full season, you get Sonny Styles, with Quentin Williams up in the front 7. The only thing you're lacking now is really a pass rusher. And so they can obviously address that later in the draft, especially if they get 39. But let's say this doesn't happen, right? Because it's a trade, you can't predict trades. Let's say Cleveland keeps this pick. And let's say they go Sonny Styles, right? And then Washington here takes, would this be the second offensive player after Jeremiah Love, takes a wide receiver, right? And it's kind of preserving the last real top 10 defensive, or last 2 defensive picks for the next 2 teams. And that's Reuben Bain Jr. going to the Saints and Mansour Delane going to the Dolphins. But I also could see the Chiefs going with Delane out of LSU for their secondary, as they did trade Trent McDuffie to the Rams. They also have their first-round pick later tonight. But again, this is another team with 2 first-round picks that could potentially trade up with the Giants to get a guy like Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs if available. And so the Saints feel like if a Reuben Bain Jr. can get past, if a Reuben Bain Jr. can get past the Chiefs and the Saints, then it feels like an opportunity for the Cowboys or another team, right? We're predicting some of these teams that are better in defense to trade up, but what if a team like Baltimore wants to trade up, right? They undid their Max Crosby trade. Yes, they have Trey Hendrickson now, and maybe they don't need for another line or pass rusher, but what if there's an opportunity to pair up, Reuben Bain Jr. with a Trey Hendrickson? That could be very fearsome. A lot of people were, thinking of just having Max Crosby, but Hendrickson and Reuben Bain Jr. would be a tremendous pass rushing unit right there. So there's a lot of situations. But let's say we get to 12. And the Cowboys are screwed right now. They're screwed. They either go, let's say, Proctor out of Bama, right? Tackle. They do need at tackle. It would suck for the Cowboys to do that. Or they go a guy that goes all the way down at 20 in Thielman out of Oregon, safety. I don't love this pick if it were to happen at 12, but it's a situation where you're like, we need to draft the best player available at a position of need, and a serious need. That's what would happen here. But again, once you get out of 12, once 12 happens, honestly, it's really 11, because once 11 hits, Cowboys are probably going to go defense if any of the previous defensive players are going to be there. Then it becomes just pick who you can, right? Rams go wide receiver. Baltimore goes line. Buccaneers go tight end, right? Another wide receiver offense. And then you just kind of get pieces that teams need, right? Some teams need corners, right? Some teams need pass rushing. Some teams there's not a lot of skill positions. It's more needs at certain positions. And so overall, the top 10 of this year's draft feels like it kind of holds a lot of weight, because it feels like there's a lot of teams right now that feel like potentially they're one pick away, right? If they can hit on that pick. The Chiefs feel that way. A little bit skeptical about that. The Cowboys feel like they're one pick away. A little bit skeptical about that, right? You have teams like the Rams with Atlanta's pick. What do they potentially trade that into, right? They traded their own first round pick away, so they only have this one, but do they really use it on a wide receiver? If a guy like Reuben Bain Jr. falls to the Rams somehow at 13, that would be an insane pick for them at 13, an insane steal, right? If any of those top 10 guys falls to Baltimore, they feel like they are in a competitive state right now. Same thing with Tampa Bay, right? Detroit, right? Missing the playoffs last year was a big bummer, right? They lose a couple pieces in the offseason. Do they go back to rebuilding their offensive line? Or do they get more help on the defensive side of the ball? There's a lot of questions going to be answered on Thursday. I am very excited. Let me know who your guys' teams are in the comments below. Let me know who they are, and let me know who you want your team to draft, because it's interesting to know where people's minds are at, right? As a Cowboys guy, I would love Sonny Styles more than Caleb Downs, but some Cowboys guys like Caleb Downs so much more than Sonny Styles, right? Some Jets fans might like David Bailey more than an Arvell Reese. So let me know in the comments below. I'm going to engage with you guys down there in the comments. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you made it here, love y'all. Appreciate you. leave a like. Make sure to subscribe and get more draft day content because we're going to be posting a bunch here before Thursday. So make sure to be listening out for notifications if you ring that bell. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.